Hello, welcome to the third part of Unit 5, that is the logistic regression. So this topic we are taking up at par with the data science with R. So in this topic we will look up regarding the logistic regression and the reasons why and where we should choose a logistic regression and what will be something to be avoided, what things to be considered. So those all aspects will be taken part in the next slides. So before we look into the logistic regression, the first and foremost thing was a linear model, where this linear model it is predicting the continuous variables. So that is what we call it as a numeric or an integer or float variables. But as far as the logistic regression is going to be concerned, it will take up the categorical, that is what we call it as string or we call it as character variable. So the data type will be string or a character. So the output variable, what we decide, will be the character variable, and that we are going to predict the likelihood based on the input variables. So in general, the output variables, they can be set as true or false, yes or no, pass or fail. So such type of reasons, binary decisions. So the such type of emoluments, they are going to fall into the logistic regressions. When coming to the logistic regression, there is an example, a general example, that we want to check whether a person will purchase a automobile in the next 12 months or not. So we want to determine whether a person will purchase a new automobile in the next 1 year or not. So if this is the question, now what should be the data set? So the data set, it is embedded as part of a training set, and it gives the different person ages, different person income, different person's gender, and the existing automobile. So I assume you have a car and it is 10-year-old car. So you procured your old car that is 10 years. So maybe in the next year, as this is a old car, do you have an intention to purchase for the next year? In this model, you want to predict something. So there the logistic regression is going to happen. So logistic regression, it is going to predict the likelihood of a probability of making a person. So that likelihoodness, the probabilistic estimation is going to be taken up in the word called as a logistic model. So there are some use cases where the logistic regression will happen. One, it can be in a medical sector. So when coming to the medical sector, when coming to the medical sector, so they are going to develop a model and sees the patient likelihood he is successful, whether his treatment was successful or not. So obviously they will take the person's age, weight, blood pressure, some cholesterol levels, etc., and see whether his treatment has been done and now is he healthy or not. So in this model, we look up with this medical way. Second way was the financial finance domain. So in this domain, in general, what will be that whether the loan can be repaid. So you look at the credit history of the person, and we will determine whether the person will repay the loan or not if the loan has been given to him. So whether he will be a defaulter or not, like that we will assume it. So that is what we call it as the finance domain. The next one will be the marketing domain. So in this marketing domain, there is a wireless company. So it checks up whether the customer, he will switch the carriers churning. So the wireless equipment like routers, etc., whether the person he will churn or not. So the mobile subscribers, so whether he will change the plan or not, like that, in that model, that will be taken up. And similarly, there are some engineering applications. We will estimate the security, we will estimate the uh, schedules or the machinery activity. So how long a machine life will be there, whether it is, when it may malfunction, when there may be a failure detection. In this way, we will predict something. So there are some certain applications where this linear regression, where this logistic regression is taking place. That can be a medical domain, it can be finance domain, a marketing domain, or a engineering domain. Okay, so coming to the very first thing, when we say it is a logistic regression, it is with a logistic function. So the logistic function, it will have a binomial way of relating the things, which will spread from 0 to 1, which will spread from 0 to 1. And you can say this is a non-linear trend at this point of time. Whereas linear regression, we say it is a straight line and we say it is a linear. But when coming to the logistic, we call is a non-linear trend. And obviously it spreads for the value of between a range of minus infinity to plus infinity. But in general, the value of the probabilistic estimate will vary from 0 to 1, will vary from 0 to 1 based on the probabilistic function, based on the logistic function, what we are going to use. So as mentioned, the output, which is going to be the dependent variable. So this dependent variable will vary from 0 to 1. So obviously it will give up the values towards the occurrence of an event in form of a probabilistic way, and it is used to predict the likelihood of the outcome. So this was the major concern of the dependent variable. So the dependent variable, it is going to predict the likelihood of the output, what we are going to happen with. So as usual, the function will work in with an equation called as the linear model itself. So why we are going to call it as an output variable, or we are going to call it as dependent variables. And beta 0, beta 1, beta 2, and beta p, these elements we call it as the slope values, and we call it as some coefficients. We have x1, x2, xp minus 1, and xp minus 1. These are called as independent variables. We call them as independent variables. So these input and these are also called as input variables. So these input variables, they represents the probabilistic event, and that it is representing in form of a exponent value that is given as e power y by 1 plus e power y, and the range is from minus infinity to plus infinity. So that is where the model is going to spread up. So the success or a failure will be expressed between 1 to 0 itself. And second thing, the value of P, that is which is in the F and Y, will be represented in log form, will be represented in a logarithmic value. Excuse me. And this logarithmic value, it will give up the maximum likelihood of the estimation. It will give up the maximum likelihood of the estimation, and it gives up the ratio. So how the model can be maximized when it needs to give a better output. Now, let us see a mobile company, mobile operator company. They want to see that a wireless telecom company wants to estimate the probability whether the customer will churn, that is, switch to a different company. So if you are moving from one company to another company, we call it as churn. Means switching from the company to another one. That is the definition of churning. So we need in the next 6 months. So that is also a given. So the manager will ask who will be the persons in the next 6 months they may churn. So what is their probability? Who can tell that these persons may churn? So if that persons are identified, they can go with a customized input, give them some customized offers to retain the customer. So that is how a business to be improved. So before that, they need to apply some prediction models. They need to apply the accurate predictions so that it is with the likelihood of the person may churn or not. So for that, we are going to take a database. So the data set size is equals to some 8,000 instances or 8,000 rows, and it is going to have attribute 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So first attribute deals with age, a numeric value. So this is numeric. Second attribute deals with marriage, true or false. We call it as category value. Third attribute deals with duration of customers, how long he is, and that is the number or numeric value. And churned contacts count. So the number of customers contacts who have churned. Say example, I have earlier I have 5 friends with me, and now assume all my 5 friends they left from this company to other. So now, as my friends are there, is there a chance that this person also will move from the present operator to the another operator? So you need to estimate it. You need to predict the probability. So how many friends this existing customer is having, because the other friends are joined to another company and they are using that mobile services, whether this person he is influenced by that friends, and whether he will switch from this company operating services to other mobile operating company services. So is there any probability or not? You need to estimate. For that, we will see that the churned contacts count. So number of contacts, customer contacts were churned or not. And finally, his record. So whether he has with the company, whether he is turned, that is turning in sense, whether the person is churned. So churn, if it is true, we will give it as 1. If it is not churn, we will give it as false value. So to this data set, we need to fit up the logistic regression. Why we need to fit up the logistic regression? The reason is churn is a categorical variable. The churn is a categorical variable. That is churn yes or no. Yes means 1, no means 0. Now you need to give a decision whether this person will churn or not. So for that, what are the attributes? 1, you can take age. 2, you can see how many friends are already churned from this company to other companies. That is churn contacts. Third one, the Y value, which it is going to be the outcome. And fourth one, what will be his probability? What will be his probability uh, to churn or not? So what will be his probability to make a churn or not? So that it is going to be estimated. So customer, age, churn contacts, Y, and probability of churning. Now, why it says churn or not? That is, we say it is category variable, and now 0.38 and 1.36, we say the beta naught, beta 1 and beta 2 values. Age and churn contacts, we call them as input variables or independent variables. Why we are going to call it as dependent or output variable? So this is all what we are going to check. Now, how did we get minus 4.12? How did we get minus 3.36? Why did we get 0.9? So what is the formula was? The formula was y is equals to 3.50 minus 0.16 into the age and 0.38 into the churned contacts. Okay, now the question is, from where did you get 3.50? How did you write 0.16? Why did you write 0.38? Where did you get these values? We got those values. The equation was y is a dependent variable. We have beta naught, beta 1. So these will be the coefficients along with slope and intercept. So for that, we are going to use a f of x function. So we compute the exponential power of that, and thereby we are going to use a log linear function, that is log n of the probability by 1 minus p of y for all the elements, and thereby we identify the maximum likelihood of the log it function. So using this formula, we were able to identify the maximum likelihood, and we derived 3.50, 0.16 and 0.38. Okay, you derived it, fine. Now, how can I understand this? What is this probability 666 telling? What is the probability 0.016 telling? And I have an age 20. I have a age segment 30. I have old customers whose age was 50. So the entire contacts is around 10. The entire contacts were around 10. The entire contacts were around 10. Now, what is the probability here is high. So what does it tell? The churn probability is high. Therefore, 20-year segment customer will have a chance to churn. Obviously, there is no other reason, because number of contacts are 10 and their y value and their probability value is nearer to 1, is almost greater than the midway, that is 0.5. So the other friends, the 10 friends, they are influencing the 20-year guys to move from this telephone operator and come to the new subscriber. How did you make this statement? I made this statement when seeing the values of y, because they are all positive values, but when coming to the 50-year-old guys, the values are negative values and they will stay here, they will stick to this operator, even though if they give offers or not also they will stick there, and the chances for them are 0.01, 0.03 and 0.98. So even though they have friends who have churned, but still their mindset was to stay with the operator. How did you tell it? I told it because I computed a probability with the logit function, and that logit function has given a value of 0.16, which is almost nearer to zero interval. So I have confidence on the 30-year-old guy segment. I have confidence on the 50 years guy segment that their likelihood of probability will be more to the subscriber. But to the guys who are at 20 years old, their friends are churning and the probability was greater than 0.5, then obviously this persons also may leave the telephone operator. In this model, we are going to give a deduction. So you can see here there are 93% chances for the 20-year-old guy, because the number of probability is very high. So it is 0.9, that is almost 1, and the y value is 2, 1.4, 0.68. But here all the values, they are going to be in negatives, but it is towards the lower end. This is lower end values, and the other, you can say these are all at the high end values, high end values. So that it is going to say that the dependent variable is telling that the people will stay, that is from record number 1 to 5, the people will stay, but from record number 6 to 9 we can't say. We have, there is a chance of probability that these people may churn out. So that was the statement we can make. So you can see the coefficients of the age, they are going to indicate the negative value, that is with the point minus 4, minus 3, like that. So the statements, the churning will increase, but at this 20-year guys, etc. Now let us see another example here. So in this example, we will fit up a logistic regression to the example called as churn input. So this churn input, what it is going to tell was, so 0 will not churn, 1 will churn. Churn means the person may switch to other company. So there is a chances may switch or move to other company. So that's what the churning is tell. ID, of course, it is the register number or roll number, whatever you call, and age. And this is 01, we call it as categorical variable. And married, again, yes or no, it is categorical variable. Customer years, an integer. Customer contacts, integer, we call it as numeric variables or some continuous variables, etc. So age, again, it is a numeric value. Okay, so that is what we got it. So 1 indicates that the customer will churn, and 0 indicates that the customer will remain. So altogether there are 8,000 customer records, and in this 1743 customers, that is 22%, were already churned. Okay, so I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, like that, 8,000 records. So first one is ID, second one is churn, third one is married, fourth one is churned years, fifth one is churn contacts. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So total size is equals to some 8,000 into 5. So 8,000 rows, 5 columns. So we have 40,000 size, entity size. So this has to be diagnosed. So 40,000 records has to be diagnosed, where a normal Excel sheet, a normal C program, a normal text file may not address efficiently. So that is the reason why we go with machine algorithms. That is why we move to the data science to do some analysis. So that is the reason why we are working with the logistic regression. Okay, now in this 8,000 records, 22%, that is almost 1743, shows the customers who left, that is who churned. Okay, rest are with the operator itself. Now what we are going to do is we are going to do this column. So this is name of data set. Head displays first 6 rows or records. So head, it is going to display the first 6 rows or the records. So that is what we take up as an input here. Fine. When we are going to use linear model regression, we will use LM. But when we are going to use logistic model regression, then we will use GLM. So that is the difference. Okay, so if we are going to use linear regression, we will use LM function. When we are going to use GLM, we will use for the logistic regression. Now answer will be stored. So the variable it is where the answer, that is the logistic regression answer, will be stored into the churn logistic one. Next one, GLM, it is the logistic function. Now churn, we call it as output variable, that is dependent variable. Then age, married, customer years, churn contacts, these items we call them as input or independent variables. And the non-linear function in logistic regression, we are going to use logit. So that is what it is belong to a family of binomial. It belongs to the family of a binomial. So like a sine wave, the answer should provocate. So for that we use this model. Now you do this step 1. Next we are going to build a summary of it. Now the answer is going to display as follows. Fine. Now let us analyze the answer. Now PZ, PR of greater than Z, it is going to say the hypothesis test. You can say it is almost nearer to 0. Now you can say they are near to 0. So we have 0 significance, that is H0. So we go with the null hypothesis. We go with the null hypothesis. So we have, it is almost less than 0. But when you say contact customer years, so this value is a little bit fishy here. The reason was it was showing 0.5. So it is towards 1, which is not fitting in the null hypothesis. So we have to reject the null hypothesis and we have to accept the alternate hypothesis. But in the earlier cases, we can accept the null hypothesis. And second thing was the overall intercept, the overall estimation here, that is what we call it as intercept, is 3, which is relatively less. And the standard error was also, it is in 0.00, 0.06, 0.63. Of course, it is high, and the cumulative value was given as 0.16 for all these, etc. And the z-score, that is the t-test value, of course, so it is relatively, it is in -38, which is less to 0. 0.07, it is almost 1, it is almost 1, but here the churn context is a little bit high. We need to agree on that issue. So what is this estimation was telling was, the estimation shows it is, they are all almost to 0, but churn context is having 0.3, that we will discuss. So we have attribute 1, attribute 2, attribute 3, attribute 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Churn input is name of data set we are going to give. So all these values are reciprocated there. Fine. Next one was so whether the values are statistically to 0 or not, we need to give the answer. So as we have done in the regression model, the same we are going to do. So first one, you have to see, it is churn logistic 1. Now again, we are working on the same churn logistic 1. So we have the age values, which is to the significant codes. Churn context also is significant to 1, but married and customer years, they are towards 1 and they are not near to 0. So at this point of time, they are not significant to 0. So can we rerun so that we can remove these values because they are not fitting into the model? So we need to look into this case. So what we have done was, earlier it is churn logistic 1. Now we are going to move to the churn logistic 2. So we get this the logistic regression model. So now we are going to use age, married and contacts. So what did we remove? We have age, married, contacts and customer years. So we have removed this customer years first because it is towards 1. So it is at alternate hypothesis there. So we removed it, and as of now, first item is removed. Now again, we have reiterated, we are rerun this model. So now what was this model telling? So intercept, yeah, it is nearer to 0. Then age, it is nearer to 0. Churn contacts, it is nearer to 0. So they are more significant to 0, and we can say that is null hypothesis is going to be considered. But when coming to the married option, so whether this attribute is needed to make an estimation or not, because 0.3 is not equals to 0, isn't it? 0.3 is not equals to 0. So at that point, we do have the alternative hypothesis. So it is towards the alternative hypothesis, and the error may be relatively high. So if you can check at this point, it is 0.004, but it is 0.2, but this is 0.6. It is going to be very, very high. So we have the standard error, which it is going to be very high at this point of time. So whether we can move this married out from the relation or not, so that it is going to be derived. So now we are going to work on the logistic regression 3. So when we say it is logistic regression 3, we do have first variable, we do have only the second variable. We have the first variable. So earlier we do have age, married, and churn. So that is first variable age, second variable married, third variable churn contacts. But now in this model, we are going to feed only age, and we are going to feed only churn contacts. So churn, it is going to be the output variable. Age and churn contacts, they are going to be the input variable. So churn input is the data set name, and binomial, it is the logit function. So log n by x by y values. So it will be in a sine wave sine model. Okay, so now this was the final model what we are going to provide, because the output is not affected by the other attributes. So why we are going to call it as final? Why did you call this model as a final? The reason is intercept was significant to 0, age was significant to 0, churning was significant to 0, almost 0. That is, they are with H0 towards the null hypothesis. So we have to accept the null hypothesis at this value of time. And second one, standard error is 0.12, standard error is 0.02. So very less standard error is going to come up at this point of time. So even the estimate value, it is at minus age, and the churn context is also 0.3, which is relatively even. This is at the minus score. So this is all the positive indications that the value age will be the optimal way to fit into the model. That is the age affecting the persons to churn from one mobile company to another mobile company, to switch from one mobile company SIM card to another mobile company SIM offers. So what is the factor it is occurring? It is occurring his friendship, his churned contacts, and his age. So these two are deciding whether the person to stay with this company or move to an other company, because the other friends may influence his way of looking at the things in the company. Next one was, when we fit a model, we get a residuals. So residuals are nothing but the errors. So what was the error we are going to build up was, we are going to build up with a minimum error of -2 to maximum error of 3.36, and you can see the mean value is really interesting. It is almost in -0. So what it shows? It shows that error is very less, because median is minus 0.19 because the value what the residuals is showing is minus 0.9. If it is 1, we say it is less, but still it is minus itself. So definitely whatever sine wave model, whatever wave the linear regression model is going to build, the dots between this, the distance what we are going to consider is very, very less error. So that is what the intention we are going to see. So the likelihood of the model in was telling that the churning is going to be estimated with the word called as maximum likelihood estimation. So we use the maximum likelihood estimation model. So this model, it was saying that maximum likelihood model, it is saying the probability of churning error was low. So this is what the statement when we observe at the median value. Next comes degree of freedom. Now, how many attributes did we use? Answer: 2. Age, churn context, isn't it? Therefore, degree of freedom is equals to 2. Therefore, degree of freedom is equals to 2. That is 7999 minus 7997 is equals to 2. So that is what we are going to have. Now, how much is the deviation between the null hypothesis and how much is the deviation between the errors generated? You told now, so these are the residuals, the values we are going to get, they are between minimum value and maximum value, you told. Now, for that, we estimated a deviation. We estimated the variance. So null hypothesis variance was telling 8387 and the residual variance was telling it is 5359. So we get some difference. So that difference is almost low, and which it is going to be in the range. Okay. What is 6 here? Number of iterations the model was telling, that number of iterations is going to be reciprocated as 6. So fine. Up to now, we talked about only the attributes, each and every individual attribute for the model, but holistically for entire logistic model, if we want to estimate, then we need the R square method. Then we need the pseudo R square method. So that was the important scenario why we are bringing the pseudo R square. So this pseudo R square, it is going to be defined with a function of 2 into logarithmic of L, and L, it is going to say the maximum value or the likelihood function to be obtained. So how we are going to get this likelihood, etc., as mentioned? So it is going to see that the null deviation, the value where the likelihood function is only based on the intercept term. So what is intercept term? Where did we see this intercept term? So we have already seen the intercept term. So the estimation, we were telling it as 3.5. The standard error was 0.2. The Z was 27.27. In this model, we are telling. So those value, we are going to call it as the null estimated value. Next one was we are going to have the residual errors. The next item was we need to drop with the residual error. So in this residual error, what we are going to take up was the value. It is going to indicate the likelihood of the specific parameter. So what are these parameters? We can mention it out. So the parameters where it is going to tell up the residuals, it is going to tell up the likelihood function. So y is equals to b naught, it will be when there is null, and when it is some residuals, it takes up the entire content, and we generate the pseudo R square where we do it 1 into null deviation minus residual deviation by residual deviation, so we get this model. Now I got an answer. If the answer was towards 1, then the fit is okay, the fit is good, we can say. If it is nearer to 1, there is a good fit. But if it is nearer to 0, then what says that you need to reiterate the model, you need to check another variables to apply the model or not. So we can't make any predictions, etc. So those are going to come into the scenario. So the other thing was we are working on the deviance, and we need to have the log likelihood ratio test. So the log likelihood ratio test was taken up with a value called as t, and t, it is going to define the chi-square method. So this chi-square method, it takes up the two differences between two log models, and it also including the degree of freedom, that too between the null hypothesis and the alternate hypothesis. So in the case of null hypothesis, what is the number of attributes taken, and in the case of alternate hypothesis, what are the number of attribute has taken. So the difference we are going to figure out, and that we are going to represent it as k. And finally we get the chi-square method, and this chi-square method, it is going to give up the values that t is equals to some null deviance minus the residual deviance. So we get an appropriate value to fit up the model. So in the hypothesis test, a larger value of t will indicate the fitting model is significant than the null model. So if t is high, fit is good. So that was the conclusion, what we are going to get from this deviation. Now, we made churn 2, we made churn 3, that is churn logistic 2 and churn logistic 3. First of all, we will verify at the churn logistic 2. So in churn logistic 2, now you can see the t value here. You can see the t value here. So the t value, what it was doing was, it is making a difference between t is equals to difference between null deviation minus residual deviation. So what is the value we are going to get? It is 330.28.1, and with a degree of 2. So how did we get this degree? So how did we get this degree here? So we were talking about the two attributes which was taken up. So what are the two values? So we have to move to the previous slide at this point of time. So we got this 83887.3 at this case, and another was 5359.2. So where is this 5352, and where is this degree of freedom 2? So let us move to the previous slide. Yeah, this is what I was talking. We are going to get the residual deviance, that is 5359.2. And what is the degree of freedom here? It is 799 minus 7997. We are going to get the degree of freedom as 2 at this point of time. So carry forward these two things to this slide. So degree of freedom was 2, and the fit model earlier we have shown is 5359.2. So the latest value was 8387.3. So we are subtracting these two values, and we have a fit value here as 3. Why it is 3? Because it is 1, it is 2, and it is 3. So that is the reason why we get degree of freedom is equals to 3 at this point of time. So 1, 2, married, 3, age. So we take 3 contacts at this point of time. So this is how we are going to estimate the t value. So t value we generated, it is going to be a deviation between the null and the residual deviance. Fine. Next one. Next one. We need to see again to extend our discussion to the churn value, that is logistic churn, to the same example at this point of time again. So we made a statement that the earlier was 5359.2, but the present value was we got this from 5358. Where is this value? Previous slide, that is number, I will write, this is 21. Okay, so 5359, where did you get this value? 5359, where did I get this value? I got this value from slide number 17. That too, when I am going to use at churn logistic 3, I am doing this churn logistic 3. At that point of time, I got 5359.2, slide number 17. So in slide number 17, I got this model here. So in slide number 17, I got this model. So in slide number 17, it was telling that to at churn logistic 3, churn logistic 3, the value was 5359, and the present residual deviance was 5358.2, which is 0.9. What is it telling? So minimum is 0, maximum is 1. Now it is towards the higher end, and it is going to be with the higher end, and the degree of freedom difference. So in churn logistic 3, degree of freedom is equals to 2. Now in churn logistic 2, degree of freedom is equals to 3. Now we are going to get this 1. So degree of freedom is equals to 1. So we call here as degree of freedom. Now we got this value 0.9 as an interval, that we are going to send it to the chi-square method. Degree of freedom 1, we are going to forward it to the chi-square method. So what is chi-square method and what is the approximation you get? So again, the formula for the chi-square method we have already generated. So we do get this degree of freedom from null to alternate. We got this difference, and thereby we are going to estimate this between the 2 into log null minus 2 of log alternate hypothesis. So we got this chi-square method with the t value, that is null deviation minus residual deviation. So that is where we generated this chi-square method with the value. So what is the answer we got? We got it as 0.3427 percentage, implies 100% minus some 34.2%. We get around 66%. So 66 percentage, we are going to let 100 percentage, we are going to say it is high confidence. We can say the persons are not going to churn. How did you make this statement? Is it a vague statement? Is it a statistical statement? How did you get this statement? I got this statement after doing a logistic model. How did you do the logistic model? I done with logic linear function, and then I have used the chi-square method. Using the chi-square method, I computed the difference between null residuals, the difference between the other variance methods, and thereby I concluded the prediction interval. In this prediction interval, I am using the chi-square method. Using the chi-square method, I could able to say that 60% high chances. We can say that the null hypothesis would be rejected. So the null hypothesis of the marriage would be rejected. There is no need to consider the marriage attribute. I am sounding more. How did you get this sound? Because the confidence was 66%. How did you get this 66%? I used a chi-square method with two parameters, 0.9. How did you get 0.9? I got the 0.9 from the log logic likelihood ratio test. How did you get this log likelihood test? It is the difference between null deviance and the residual deviance. So I got the null deviance and residual deviance method. So again, how did you do the null deviance and residual deviance method? I have taken the model called as the maximum likelihood probability estimation model to compute those values. How did you draw the estimation model? I have drawn the estimation model using the logit function. So every term is totally interdependent when we are solving this answer towards a statistical model. So the next word was to talk about the receiver operating characteristic curve. The next model to look into the issue will be the receiver operating characteristic ROC curve. So in general, this was dealing with some electronics and communication scientist. He has derived this model, but now it is most frequently used in data science now. What in general this logistic regression is telling? It says that if the classifier is assigned to a label, whether we can predict the probability. If the probability was high, we move to the other end label. If the probability was low, we move to the lower end label. So example, we told we will churn the customer as a high or low. So based upon the label value, we see that we can churn him or not. So what is the midpoint I'm going to make a churn? I can make a churn as 0.5. That will be the default probability. That is 50% chances. So if we toss a coin, to get a chance of head, to get a chance of tail is equal. So that is what a 50% is going to be answered at this condition. Now, the churning or assigning labels to a class will totally be provided to the model with the preferences, that is with false positive or some false negative. So when I'm going to call it as a false positive, we have to predict the churn when actually the customer will remain. Similarly, when I'm going to say a false negative, to predict remain when a customer was actually churn. So in this model, we need to estimate the false positive or false negative. Okay, let us look to this words false positive and false negative in detail. So now what we are going to do is we do have some confusion matrix. So in this confusion matrix, we have the actual values, then we have the predictive values. We have the actual values and we are going to have the predictive values. So when we are doing with actual values, so we write true and we write false, and here we write the positive and negative. So that how we are going to relate the actual scenarios with the predictive scenarios, how we are estimating it. So if we are going to say true positive, and next one we have true negative, we have false negative. Similarly, we do have false positive and we have true negative. How we are classifying, how we are going to classify a label, whether it is a churn can happen, a churn may not happen. So how we are going to estimate? We estimate it with two attributes. One we are going to call it as false positive rate. Another we are going to call it as a true positive rate. One we are going to call it as false positive rate. Two we are going to call it as false negative rate. So this false negative and true positive, they are purely based on the confusion matrix. And the confusion matrix, we have this true positive element that we predict C that will happen. So both are going to happen. So we predict it and that it is going to happen. Next one was we say true negative. So we didn't predict it, right? We didn't predict it, but still it is not a, it is not happened. So we didn't predict and it didn't happen. So again, we call it as a true negative values. And we predicted something here and that didn't happen. So we call that element as a false, false positive. Similarly, we didn't predict, but actually it happened. So again, we are going to call that element as a false negative value. So true positive, true negative, false positive, and false negative. So these are all going to be linked to generate the receiver operating characteristic curve. So in this, with the very first event, we look into the false positive rate. It is going to say total number of false positives by uh, negatives. And similarly, when we are going to say with the total positive rate, it is going to say total number of positives by number of total number of true positives by uh, total positives. So total positives, it is going to happen in this model. So we can write so the total positives, we are going to say it is true positive plus, I mean, true positive divided by total positives, true positive plus false positive. But when I'm going to say it is false positive and total number of negatives. So total number of negatives, yeah, I can say one I'm going to call it as false positive, false positive divided by false positive plus false negative. So in this model, we are going to get the values. So first of all, how we can drop the ROC curve? We need to get the ROC curve. When we need to get the ROC curve, first of all, we need to import the package. We need to import the package and we need to install and import the package, that is ROCR. So that is what we are going to take. Then we have to predict. We have to predict the values, and the logistic model is happen. The answer is going to be stored in this churn logistic tree, and the type was responses. So we are going to move in this direction. So next one, we are going to make a prediction. How we are going to make a prediction was, the prediction was between the predict and the churned input. So churned input, it is going to be part of the churn input. It is going to be part of the data set at here, and churn, it is going to be the variable name, that is it can be high or it can be low. Churn, it can be high or it can be low. Next one, we need to estimate the performance of the value, and this performance of the value, it is bringing the true positive and the false positive rate. So one, it is going to bring up the true positive values, another it is going to bring up the false positive values. And then we are going to have AUC, that is what we call it as area under curve. We are going to call it as area under curve. So area under curve, again we are going to point out here. So ROC object, we are going to have the prediction as an output value, we are going to pump into the directly. Next one, we are going to call a plot function. So in this plot function, we are calling the ROC curve, and thereby we are going to take it main, that is where we display the title here, and the title, it is going to be displayed with value 1 to 4, and where we are going to display the AUC object. So, and its values we are going to put. The value was 0.8877. So what is the x-axis? X-axis we are going to have false positive rate. Then what is the y-axis parameter? The other measure, we are going to have the true positive rate. We are going to have this measure into the situation. Now we are bringing a curve. We are bringing a curve. So how is this curve generated? Means it is stipulated between the minimum interval of 0.0 and it is stipulated with the maximum interval of 0.1. Similarly, the true positive and false positive, whether it is between again 0.0 to 1.0. So the closure of the ROC track. So what is this ROC curve educating us? So it is going to educate us if the curve is towards the upper left hand side, then fit is good. Then the model or the fit is going to be good. So it is going to be a better model or a better classifier. So that means the true positive rate must be very high, that is near to 1. So this was the key takeaway from the slide at this point of time. So the true positive value, what we are going to insist. So the true positive value, what we are going to insist at this point of time. So it is going to be written up. It is going to be written up with low false positive and high true positive value. So 0.0, what we say, it is low false positive rate. Then it is 1.0. What we are going to say, it is high true positive rate. It is high true positive rate. So one, we are going to say low positive rate, and we are going to say it is high positive rate. So we are moving from left to right, and it is going to be a good classifier if it is going to be near to 1. Okay, now how do we make an illustrations between the false positive rate, and how do we make an illustrations between the true positive rate is a big issue at this point of time. So the illustration was, we take uh, 3 axis here, or 3 dimension. One, we are representing true positive. Two, we are going to represent 3 side. We are pointing out a graph. So one, we are going to have a true positive value. In the same graph, we are going to have a false positive have. And third, we are going to have a threshold. So one, it is true positive rate. Two, it is false positive rate. And three, it is mimicking with the threshold. So altogether, the ranges are between 0 to 1, the ranges are between 0 to 1, the ranges are between 0 to 1. So either for true positive threshold, or we are going to give it for a false positive. So we are now estimating the threshold value, at what threshold the person may churn. That is, by default it is 0.5. So at what threshold the person is going to churn. So in order to make that threshold value, so we are now pumping with this alpha. So it is giving the threshold value. It is going to give the threshold value at this point of time. So what it is going to take, it is converting to a number, and it is unlisting, and it is going to take the receiver oscillating curve as an object, and we take the alpha value. Similarly, we take the x-axis and we take the y-axis. So FPR, so FPR, it takes up with the x value, and TPR, it is taking the value from the receiver oscillator curve from the y value. Then we are going to adjust the parameters. We are marking up with between 5, 5, 2, 5. We are going to fix up the size. In the x label, we decline it with 0 to 1. And similarly, y label, we are going to give this between true positive rate. And now we are going to plot one alpha here, that is threshold. Two, we are going to plot up the FPR. So threshold versus FPR, and threshold versus TPR. So this is plot 1. Another one was plot 2. So in one, we are going to give the threshold versus FPR. In another, we are going to give threshold versus TPR. Now, we need to text FPR, we need to text true positive rate. For that, we are going to give the location where they need to display, at what point of time they need to display. Those it is going to be at the point where, that is at 0.58 and 0.58, it needs to be displayed. And similarly at 0.18 and 0.18, text to be displayed. So this is what we are going to make the observation. So where this FPR, where this TPR has to come. So we are going to bring this value at this case. So similarly, where the FPR should rise, so it is at the third position. We are going to give it at the side 4. So this is side 1, 2, 3, 4. At the side 4, it is going to have the FPR rate. It is going to give at the side 4, it is going to display the FPR rate. Why? Because we can by default write threshold at x-axis. We can by default, we can write true positive values at the y-axis. But this is a complex graph where we need to write it at the outer side of the graph. So for that, we mention up in the model the top right as 1, then left as 2, the bottom as 3, and the right corner as 4. So we fix up the corners and therefore we are writing it. So that is the reason why we mentioned it as side is equals to 4. So there we are going to write up this false positive value. So this is how we are going to bring up the content, and thereby we are drawing the false positive graph which is going to spread from very high to low. Similarly, the true positive value which is again spreading from very high to low. In this way we have drawn up the things. So at the threshold value is 0, when the threshold value is 0, the classified outcome is positive. So you can see here the classified outcome was 1. Yeah, that is agreed. And all the negatives, they are going to be classified as a positive at the false positive value is also 0. Similarly, either for TPR, whether for FPR, now we are making the values either it is positive or it is negative. For both the values, one is going to be high and they are started at the topmost corner. So true positive values, and false positive value, again you see this value as 1.0. So that is what we tell. 1 it is true positive value, 2 we are going to call it as false positive value. Now as the threshold increases, that is from 0 to 1, as the threshold increases, they are moving to the negative class labels which are going to be assigned, because probability initially we told it is that when the age was 50 years, the probability was showing minus. When the age was 20 years, the probability was giving 0.6 and 0.7 also. So now when the age was decreasing, now we are going to say it is a negative class, and then the curve was decreasing. Now you need to have a midpoint here. So when the probability was 0.5, so when the probability was 0.5 probability, so most of the considerations are going to be in the upper end size. So that is what we are going to bring at this scenario, and we will end the graph when it reaches to the low point, etc. Now let us again check what was happening into the graph technically here. So we are taking at which point we get the threshold. We get the threshold, it is 50%. So at which point we are going to get the threshold at 50%. So now the answer what it was showing was we get that the alpha value was 0.5, the true positive value was 0.55, and the false positive value it is going to be 0.73. So now what it is going to give an inference. So here I can say TPR is equals to 0.5571 implies 56%. So 56% customers will churn. So that is what we are going to bring up the relation, and how many are going to remain. So 0.0793 implies 8% will remain. So that is what the scenario we are going to bring up when we are going to work with the true positive rate. So true positive rate, it is telling that definitely the 56% of customers, they are going to churn. That is what the true positive rate it is going to tell. So next one, if I am changing it to 15%, so if interval was changed to 15%, so earlier the interval threshold is equals to some 50%, that is 0.5 we are going to keep. But if we are going to change the probability to a greater one, what it is going to show us 91%. That is 91% will churn, and only only you can say that around 3% will not churn. So that is what we call here as a misclassification rate. So how we are going to derive it? We will derive it with a value with between true positive rate and false positive rate. Now, whatever we spoke here, the churning of the customers from 56%, churning of a customers to 91%, and who will definitely will remain with us, who will definitely will remain with us. We are now bringing a overlapped estimation, that is the customer count versus the estimated churn probability. So we have the customer count, so that is number of customers, it is some 3000, and the probability it is between 0.0 to 1.0. So now we are going to have a fit. So the fit, what it was telling, what was the fit telling was the customers who remain tend to have low probability of churning. So the red mark, it is going to be a overlapping content, and this overlapping, what it was showing was the people who has churned and people who has remained. So in the initial state, what we told was we are taking a database, isn't it? Well, I will just recollect you to the starting database which we have worked, then you will have an idea. So what I was told here, I was telling there are 8,000 records. There are 8,000 records. 22% are churned. 22% are churned. Implies 82% are remained, right? So at the beginning only we told we are taking 8,000 customers. 1743, that is 22% are already moved. That means 82% are not turned. To this data set, we have made the histogram. To this data set, we had made the histogram here. So that this histogram, it was telling that the customers who remain to 10 have the low probability, and the people